Okay, so we're diving into this idea of happiness today and how it connects to success, especially for you architects out there. We've got this book, The Happiness Formula by Alphonsus Obayuwana. It's got some pretty fascinating insights.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is Obayuwana doesn't treat happiness as just like this fluffy feeling. It's something you can actually measure and track over time.
That's right. He calls it the Personal Happiness Index, or PHI.
PHI, exactly.
And get this, it's all about this balance between hope and what he calls hunger.
I'm not talking about food cravings here, though,
Right.
right?
It's more those deeper human hungers, like for connection knowledge, meaning that kind of thing.
Makes sense. You know, even just thinking about it, you can tell those things impact happiness.
Totally. And Obayawana breaks down how addressing those hungers can actually boost your happiness score. He even says happiness is measurable, contrary to what a lot of people think.
He does. He even has tools to measure it, like the Triple H equation and the PISA scale. It's also known as the Edo Questionnaire.
Okay, so hold on. Let's unpack that Triple H equation a bit.
Hmm?
What are the pieces of it, and how do they work together to influence our happiness level?
All right, so the Triple H equation looks like this: H equals T plus S plus C minus F plus I plus A plus E plus D.
Wow. Okay, that's a mouthful.
I know, it might seem a bit intimidating at first, but it's actually pretty simple.
Okay, cool.
So basically it says happiness H is equal to the sum of your sources of hope, which are your intrinsic assets, T, social support assets, S, and coping assets, C. Then you subtract the intensity of your 5 inborn hungers. Those are for food comfort, F, intimacy companionship, I, answers information, A, inclusion acknowledgement, E, and continuity certainty.
Yeah, so it's like adding up all the good stuff and then taking away the impact of the stuff we're lacking.
Exactly. The more you nurture those sources of hope and manage those hungers, the higher your happiness score.
I'm starting to see how this could be useful. If you know the formula, you can see how to actually change the outcome.
Precisely.
Now, what about the PISA scale? How does that one work?
The PIS scale is basically a self-assessment. It's got 12 statements that you rate on a scale to measure how strong your hope and hunger levels are.
Oh, interesting. So based on your answers, it tells you where you fall on the happiness spectrum.
Exactly.
It would be so interesting to track those scores over time. Imagine pinpointing those areas where you're doing great or struggling, and then making changes to improve.
Like a roadmap to a happier life.
Totally.
Yeah.
It takes the guesswork out of personal growth.
Exactly. And that's one of Obayuwana's key points. He says measuring happiness regularly is essential.
So you can see the impact of your choices and actions and make changes if you need to.
Exactly.
That makes so much sense. Now let's dive into this inborn hunger theory. This seems pretty central to his whole book.
Definitely. It explains why we crave certain things in life. Obayuwana argues that we're born with these 5 inborn hungers that drive us to seek joy and satisfaction.
It's like we're programmed for happiness from the start. But we need to learn how to feed those hungers the right way.
Think about it. Even as babies, we crave comfort, connection, a sense of security. It's all there from the beginning.
Those are some pretty basic needs. Can you give us some examples of how those hungers might show up in an architect's life?
Sure. Take the hunger for answers information. That could be what drives an architect's passion for research, their attention to detail, or their constant learning about new materials and techniques.
Makes sense. And the hunger for inclusion acknowledgement. I'm guessing that drives the desire to create beautiful, functional spaces that people appreciate.
Yeah, exactly. It's all connected.
So these hungers are like driving forces behind our actions and aspirations.
They're fundamental to the human experience, and understanding them can give us some serious insights. But as adults, it's not just about fulfilling those hungers. We also need hope to navigate all the uncertainty that comes with life.
Right. It's like you need both to really thrive.
Exactly.
And that brings us to that amazing story of the Chilean miners. That's like a textbook example of hope in action.
Absolutely. 33 miners trapped underground for 69 days. Their survival is incredible.
Talk about resilience.
Obayuwana uses their story to show how hope can be cultivated through 5 key sources. He calls them assets. Intrinsic assets, family support assets, economic security assets, knowledge and skills assets, and spiritual faith assets.
Okay, so 5 key assets that fuel hope. Let's break those down and see how they played a role in the miner survival. Starting with intrinsic assets. What are those exactly?
Intrinsic assets are your inner strengths and resources. Things like courage, resilience, determination, problem-solving skills, even a sense of humor.
So even in that terrifying situation, they were able to draw on their inner strength and find ways to cope.
Exactly. And they also leaned on each other. That's where family support assets come in.
Makes sense. They had each other's backs.
They built a sense of community, supporting each other emotionally, working together to solve problems.
It's amazing how powerful human connection can be, even in the toughest situations. It's like a reminder that we're not meant to face challenges alone.
And you know, something else that was crucial for them, economic security assets.
Really, even trapped underground.
Yeah, even though they were down there, they knew their families were being taken care of financially.
That must have been a huge relief. It's incredible how important that sense of security is.
Totally. It takes away so much stress, they could actually focus on surviving.
I see what you mean. And then you've got the power of knowledge and skills assets. I mean, think about it. Those guys had to problem solve ration supplies, keep morale up, even create a communication system.
Right. It's amazing how resourceful they were.
It really shows how valuable it is to always be learning and expanding your skill set. You never know when those skills might come in handy.
Exactly. You just never know. And finally, we have spiritual faith assets. A lot of the miners drew strength from their faith. It gave them comfort and hope in a pretty hopeless situation.
It's amazing how faith can give people a sense of purpose, even in the midst of chaos.
It's about connecting to something bigger than yourself, finding meaning even when things are falling apart.
It's a powerful reminder that hope can come from all sorts of places.
Absolutely. Both internal and external.
So the Chilean miners, their story is such a testament to the human spirit and the importance of cultivating those hope-giving assets.
And the great thing is, these assets aren't set in stone. They can be developed and strengthened.
So we can actually work on boosting our hope.
Exactly. Obayuwana even outlines specific actions we can take to boost each asset, ultimately increasing our happiness.
Okay, let's get into those then. Let's start with
Yes.
those intrinsic assets. How do we build up those inner strengths, especially in a demanding field like architecture?
He talks about this idea of aiming.
Aiming, like aiming for something.
It stands for adapting an interest into a mission. It's about finding your calling, your purpose, that thing that really lights you up and gives you direction.
I like that. So for architects, this could be finding that niche they're really passionate about, whether it's sustainable design, community-focused projects, or even historical preservation, and then making it their mission to really excel in that area.
To use it. It's about making sure your work aligns with your values and passions, and that can lead to a much deeper sense of fulfillment.
Okay, makes sense. Now, what about those family support assets?
Family support assets are all about those connections with loved ones, colleagues, your community. It's about nurturing those bonds.
So for architects, this could mean making time for family and friends, building strong relationships with clients and collaborators, maybe even getting involved in community projects related to architecture and design.
Exactly. It's about realizing that those strong relationships are vital for our well-being. Investing in those connections can really boost your happiness.
I'm with you there. And let's not forget about economic security assets. It's got to be hard to be happy if you're constantly stressed about money.
Definitely. It's about feeling confident and secure in your finances, knowing you can provide for yourself and your family.
So for architects, this could mean getting a handle on their finances, maybe diversifying income streams, creating a solid plan for the future.
Right. It's about taking control of your financial well-being. And that can give you a huge sense of freedom to pursue your creative goals.
It's like taking that weight off your shoulders so you can actually focus on what matters.
What's that?
And then you've got educational assets. Constantly learning and growing is crucial in a field like architecture.
Absolutely. Things are always changing. There are always new things to learn. It's crucial to stay ahead of the curve.
So that could mean attending conferences, taking courses, reading journals, maybe even shadowing other architects.
Anything that keeps you learning and growing.
It's like a lifelong commitment to staying curious and inspired.
Exactly.
Okay, and finally, those spiritual faith assets. What do those look like in an architect's life?
It's about connecting to something larger than yourself, finding those things that give you a sense of meaning and purpose.
So that could be through religion, spirituality, nature, even art.
Right. It's about nurturing that sense of awe and wonder that fuels creativity and keeps you connected to something bigger.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
So we've got these 5 powerful assets that can boost our hope and lead to greater happiness.
It's about finding that deeper connection that reminds you there's more to life than just the day-to-day grind.
Absolutely. And remember what Obayuwana said about measuring your happiness.
Oh yeah, it's not a one-time thing. It's about tracking your progress, seeing how things change over time.
Exactly. And that's where the Personal Happiness Index, or PHI, comes in.
And guess what? Freeven actually created this really cool online quiz. You can use it to measure your PHI.
No way. Seriously?
Yeah, it's a super easy way to get a snapshot of where you're at right now.
That's awesome. I love how it takes all the guesswork out.
And you can take it again and again. It's a simple but really effective way to keep tabs on your happiness.
That's like a progress report for your happiness.
Yeah.
You can see what's working, what's not, and make adjustments along the way.
Exactly. You're in control.
So we've got this amazing framework. Now what? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think the first step is awareness. Start paying attention to those inborn hungers, not just in yourself, but in the people around you.
It's like you're seeing the world through a new lens.
Exactly. You'll start to notice those deeper needs everywhere in your interactions with clients, with colleagues, even in the spaces you design.
And then, how do we actually use this stuff to make a difference?
That's the big question, isn't it? How can you apply these happiness assets to your work as an architect, to your relationships, to your whole life design?
What one action will you take today to boost your personal happiness index?
Let us know. We'd love to hear about it.
And don't forget, you can find the link to Freeven's quiz in the show notes.
It's a great way to kick off this journey toward a happier, more fulfilling life.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
There's so much more to explore in the happiness formula.
We highly recommend checking out the book. It's full of practical tools and strategies to help you create a life that's not just successful, but truly meaningful and joyful.
So keep that personal happiness index in mind.
And start designing a life you love.